I'm a massive advocate of kids playing multiple sports, not just, listen, if football's your primary sport, great. But if all you're doing is playing football all day, every day, somewhere along the line, there's going to be problems.
Welcome to another edition of Across the Line. On this episode, we dive deep into youth development, the nitty-gritty of how to get your child into the best possible position to succeed in his particular field or sport or creative artistry. We dive deep in that in this conversation. So if you like this episode and enjoy the content that we provide, please do subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Drop us a line. Not just rate and review, but drop us some comments. We'd love to spark a conversation and perhaps address it on a future episode. So there you go. Enjoy the episode and another Football Friday from us here at Across the Line. Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Across the Line. Jing Jamlang and Chris Greatwich on the show. As always, we'd like to thank everybody for supporting the last episode on Alvin Ocampo. It was a fantastic episode, and I think you did a great job, Chris, on this one. A lot of people have been tuning in, and they've been very interested and enthusiastic about the conversation you guys have had.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably just because it was me on the show and you weren't there.
Yeah. My absence might have had a little bit to do with it.
Maybe that's what it was. But I think it's an episode that resonates with a lot of people. He's outspoken, isn't he, Alvin? And he didn't really mince his words. He was very clear, very concise about his beliefs and his desires for what he wants from Philippine football. And I think it's quite refreshing. Yeah. I think it's quite refreshing. So I don't think many people are out there talking openly and frankly about the current situation of Philippine football. But I do think, based on the evidence of the feedback that we've had from the general public, based on even the analytics of what we've got from the producers, etc., that it's the type of episode that people want to listen to, because ultimately people want the truth. Yeah. They don't want it to be sugar-coated. They don't want some smoke and mirrors. They want to know what the truth is. And also it's a slightly different perspective, because a lot of the guests that we've had on the show have had it from a perspective of someone like myself, came from a system outside. We've had people with trying to push certain agendas. So for example, Anton was speaking about it from perhaps a more organizational standpoint. Sure. But this was the first time of having someone who's come through the system, who's still working in the system, is a product of the system, and then is able to have a more 360 overview of, as a holistic, what youth football is all about here in the Philippines. For individuals who are of a newer generation, perhaps not that familiar with Alvin Ocampo, people of his generation speak of him like he is one of the best. Yeah, definitely. Hands down, actually, the best of that generation. He really was a good football player, highly respected amongst his peers, and has been decades into the industry as a coach, as a player. So, he's got definitely that perspective. He's got the credentials, I think as well, the good thing about getting someone like Alvin on the show is when someone like Alvin speaks, people listen. Yeah. People listen. People stand up and take notice. And people definitely did with that episode. The beautiful thing as well, he's just outside the realm or the scope of that circle of influence where he's tiptoeing around issues. He wasn't that kind of character. He went straight into it, and a lot of what he was talking about was, obviously the youth. That's what he's involved in, a lot of youth development and what he feels are the pitfalls that we've been guilty of stumbling into, and then areas where there is a whole lot of improvement to be had. And you yourself, a director of youth football in the Academy of Kaya, I'm sure you have a lot of you've had a lot of opinions and ideas of how to move forward in terms of the scope of Philippine football. I'm sure, right? I have a way in which I think things should be done. Yeah. And the way in which us as a club go about our business. I don't ever profess for it to be the right way. Sure. Right? I don't. There are many ways in which you can do this. Yeah. But from my experience, I'm very cautious about saying what I believe, because I think if you start saying things like, I believe this, then you open yourself up to, okay, well, if you believe this, you better back this up with this, this, and this. Sure. I've got no problem with that. But definitely in my experience, because I've had vast experience working within the youth football segment. Yeah. The formulation of how we go about things at the academy it's from my experiences as a player, from my experiences coaching in different countries, and my now vast experience that I've had here in the Philippines.
Yeah, one of the things that I enjoyed the most out of that conversation is the exact same sentiment that you just said right there. It's not we assume that we have the correct approach moving forward, but what Alvin was talking about was his willingness to experiment with the proper use of competition, right? If we had a proper competition that we can test Chris Greatwich's ideas and my ideas, and let's make them clash on the pitch over the course of several age groups, then we'll get an opportunity to see which approach is working better, right? I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me was, listen, we have all this knowledge, we have all this capability to develop these players in a particular manner, but we don't really have a means to test out our ideas. And if we had a testing ground, we would have an opportunity to let these ideas flourish or die. If the ones that don't work, we can get rid of them. You know what I mean? We're not going to be fooled into thinking this is the way it's supposed to be, when really, nah, man, we tried that out in competition in 2 years, and that died. That idea died. So it'd be nice to be able to have that, I suppose, moving forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, he talks about that. I always get it wrong. Coke for goal or something like that. That was called something like that.
Coke for goal.
Yeah, and he said as a player he really enjoyed that competition. It was something that everyone looked forward to, and I think, and then Adidas did something for the older age groups. Yeah. So I think that was deemed as the sort of the premier tournament of those age categories, which I believe was 16s and 19s. I think I might have got that wrong. Yeah, it wasn't something that I participated in or was involved with. Yeah. Or even to come across, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it. A lot. And it seems to be, if that was like the de facto major tournament for any youth kid growing up of a certain age, certainly Alvin's generation. I mean, one thing I was a little bit with that particular competition is it seemingly was only for one age group. I might have got this wrong, but what he was saying is it was only for one age group. What I would like to see is, because then it gives a lot of pressure for one specific age group in one specific category. Does that make sense? Like, sure. If you want to have a development and really test the cycle, you should be doing that over multiple age groups. So even like when I look at the youth leagues now, a lot of them are banded in 2-year age brackets. So, for example, U7, U9, 11, 13s, and so on. A lot can happen in 2 years, right? I'm even just going to look at, as an example, so relative age theory. You've heard of that phrase? Okay. So basically, if you go to the UK, I was the beneficiary of relative age theory. So relative age theory is 50% of elite players are from the first 3 months of a selection year. Now in England, the selection process starts September 1.
Okay.
Right, September 1. So the cutoff date is September 1. So if you're born August 31, is that the right day? Or late in August.
Yeah. You don't make that age bracket.
You're shit out of luck, basically, because you're going to be 11 months younger than people in the same age bracket as you. I'm September 30. So I was the oldest in my age category. So what that means is, if I'm going to go into U7, I turn 7 and I'm 7 for 11 months of that year.
I see what you
mean.
mean.
And what that means, I'm going to be going up against a kid who could potentially be 6 years old.
Yeah.
Right? And in the grand scheme of things, that makes a huge difference. It makes a massive difference. I mean, if you look at kids, like I look at my 2 children, right, and both of them are under the age of 5. If you went and looked at them 11 months ago and see where their physical development,
motor
skills, cognitive development even, it's humongous. It's humongous.
I see.
So what happens is a kid will come in, let's say me, I'll use myself as an example. I'll come in, I'm not bad, I'm pretty good, I'm physically probably more developed than some of the other kids in my age category. Therefore, I'm able to perform at a higher level. I'm then more confident because I am playing better than the kid who's probably 11 months younger than me. I'm physically more capable than the kid who's 11 months younger than me. Therefore, I am deemed to be a better player. I am then able to elevate my game and rise to get better coaching because I can move up to a better team. So I then receive better coaching because I'm on a better team, because I'm a better player at age 7, 8, 9 or whatever.
Right.
Now the kid who's 11 months younger than me, he's really struggling to bridge that gap because, I'm physically younger. I'm biologically younger So I've got that problem. I'm never gonna catch up those 11 months. But now I'm losing out because he's getting a better coaching. He's playing at a better level. He's playing at a higher competition.
Right.
So that gap just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then obviously it compounds over the years, and then that's where relative age theory comes into play. Now, if you want to use an example, sort of the 6 kids that made it in my professional from U16 to U19s.
Yeah.
Sort of the 6 kids from my age category, 4 were born September to December.
They were the older ones. All right.
They were the older ones.
Okay. All right.
Just as an example, right?
Right.
So just a random group. That's how it is. And it's across all sports.
Relative age theory.
It's across all sports. I can go to a youth football event and I can, within a couple of months, guess if a kid is born January, February, March of that year.
So is that just a broken system, or
no? It has to start somewhere.
Right.
It has to start somewhere. But and there are ways in which people are doing it different. So, for example, in the UK, they're starting to do things called biobanding, and what that means is they get your biological age.
Yeah.
Right. Not actually like your
not on a calendar.
Not on the calendar.
Right.
Yeah. So they'll look at your physical composition.
I see. If you're developing faster than what your age is.
Because it also sometimes has a negative effect. Because if I'm of a biological, let's say I'm playing U14, but I'm biologically 16 years old.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm a man child.
Yeah.
So I was probably underdeveloped at 13, 14, but at 15, I was probably my size now.
Yeah.
So I was actually quite big at 15.
Okay.
So kids who would be knocking me around a year or two before, now all of a sudden I was physically more capable. Mm-hmm. So whatever, I mean, obviously people mature at a different rate and you can't legislate for that.
Sure.
But that's one way in which you can kind of keep it an even playing field.
Okay.
And biobanding also enables people to, let's say if you are in a U14, but you're actually of the body of a 13-year-old. Mm-hmm. And it happens. You see it all the time. You're not at the risk of getting injured. You're not at the risk of getting smashed by a kid that's twice your size.
Yeah.
You can go and play in an age category that physically the levels are equal. So you can really gauge whether or not someone is of the same ability based on where your actual biological age is.
Sure.
So I'll give you an example. The player who won our Academy Player of the Year this year, he just turned 7.
Just turned 7. Okay.
So he's, for me, the best player in the U7 category all round. Mm-hmm. Any club in Manila that I've seen. I know a kid who's at my brother's academy who's phenomenal. Great player, born January of the following year. Now that kid's going to stay and play in U7 next year, and he's going to dominate. He's going to dominate, and he's going to look like the best player on the planet.
Okay.
Right? But in reality, he's only a couple of weeks younger than this other kid. Do you get what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
So, and then this boy next year, when he steps up, he's going to be playing U9. Right? But he would have just turned 7.
Right.
This December, and he's going to be playing against kids that could be January born,
right,
9 years old.
Wow. So how do you?
Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
So it's a massive issue for those kids. So what I'm saying is you've always got to be mindful of things like this when you're working in youth football, because you might get that player is garbage or that player is terrible. No, he's not. He's just 1 year and 11 months younger than that kid. You see what he's like in 1 year and 11 months.
Right.
I guarantee he'll be better than that kid. Guarantee he'll be better than that kid.
That's the thing about youth football, right? It's very delicate in that respect, right? You can lay down, let's say, like a system, but it requires the fine eye or the keen eye or their coaches and being delicate when you need to be delicate and to be harsh and pushing them when you need to be doing that as well, right? It's got to be a delicate balance that you guys strike as coaches.
It's really hard, mate. It's really hard. It's a balance that I guess I try to impart some of that knowledge. Yeah. Maybe I need to be better about how I deliver that. Because listen, one of the hardest things for me, again, I don't want to come across as a know-it-all. That's a real problem for me, right? But there are certain things that I've experienced that enable me to have a broader overview of youth football in general.
All right.
Do you understand what
That's
I'm saying?
Fair enough. Yeah, for sure.
And it'd be amiss of me to keep all that knowledge and just sprinkle it with a couple of people who work at my club.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That will be completely wrong. The problem is if you try to spread that knowledge, is people look at you and be like, okay, you do your own thing over there and we'll do ours.
Yeah.
You know, we don't need none of your mumbo jumbo stuff.
Sure.
Right? I said on a previous podcast, which will be released I think later. I'm very diligent about my research and how I go about honing my craft as a coach, and that doesn't just mean being on the grass. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books. You know, I study football non-stop. It's my life's work, right? Yep. So in that respect, I've got to try and impart some of this knowledge that I've acquired. And if people want to listen to it, great. If they don't, that's okay. That's fine. But that's something that I struggle with, to be honest with you, is that, you know, you have certain things that you think are best practice, or certain ideas that you think should be adhered to. And stuff like this, is so important, so important. Just because your kid's born January of that year and he's physically more developed doesn't mean your kid is a superstar. Just because your kid is born December of a year doesn't mean your kid is that bad.
Sure.
Right? He just needs to catch up. He or she just needs to catch up. So don't think that your kid is amazing. Don't think your kid is bad. There are so many different extenuating circumstances, and on that development cycle, you've really got to be attuned to where they are in that process,
right?
Because you can get it massively wrong, and I think a lot of players are slipping through the net because you are deeming someone to be phenomenal, and a lot of times it's just because they're physically developed,
right?
Or you're missing out on the chance of seeing someone who could be absolutely incredible, but they're just not of that physical maturation yet.
So do you
understand what I'm saying?
So you're not giving them the shine that they should.
No.
Right.
No.
I see what you mean.
So I've got, for example, our Swiss coach, Thomas Phil, who is a wonderful human being. Nuts. Absolute crackers, mate. But he's a wonderful person. But he sees all of these things. And he'll take time with the parents, and the parents will be like, oh, you know, my kid's not aggressive enough, or my kid's not this, my kid's not that. He's like, listen, he's December born. Whatever the year is, like U14.
Sure.
Right, as an example. So he's 2 years younger than some of these kids. Some of these kids are men at 15, monsters at 15.
Yeah, I've
right?
seen some.
Your kid's 13.
Yeah.
Right, he won't be 14 till December. He'll grow into his body. He'll develop. Right, he'll get faster. He'll get strong. He's not quick right now because he's still growing into his body. You know what I mean? It's don't judge him. Oh, he's a winger and he can't go past his man. Yeah, probably because the man child he's playing against is just physically more capable right now. Right, he's got to learn other ways to develop his game. So it might be move the ball quicker. You know, it might be work on your first touch, so you're able to manipulate the ball away from that pressure and then move the ball quickly. And then, as you move the ball, can I get the other side of him through clever movement? So you're teaching them to be a bit more cute, a little bit more, improve their what Alvin said, court vision or field vision. You know what I mean? So these sorts of things, the nuances are really critical when you're dealing with young players. And like you said, it takes a highly skilled coach to understand those nuances and then be able to work through those difficulties or work through those issues in order to maximize a player's full capability.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm coming from with that?
I can imagine a whole bunch of Barcelona players who might have struggled at a lower age group. You know, you've got people who are a lot smaller, and like Lionel Messi, Iniesta, Xavi, all of them seem to be like a little too small for their age group.
Did you see there was an article that was doing the rounds?
No.
It was Xavi Hernandez's scouting report at 13.
No.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw a picture, but obviously
you not read it?
Yeah.
So I read it. So it reads something like this. I'm going to paraphrase, right? He's slow, not aggressive, can't tackle, doesn't defend. I think something about his endurance was poor. Basically everything was like bang average, poor.
Yeah.
And then it was something like his touch, impeccable. His first touch, impeccable. His passing, impeccable. His positional play, impeccable. Right? There's another thing about Paul Scholes. People were saying the same about Paul Scholes. So Paul Scholes had asthma. Paul Scholes was like really undersized. He couldn't run. And he was a dwarf. People were saying he's a dwarf. Like, if he'd been at any other club, he would have been He would have been cut.
He would have been sidelined.
Sidelined for sure. He said he would play like 10 minutes of a game. He'd have to be subbed out. Can't move.
So how do you persist with somebody like that?
So it depends. Like, and that's what the point that I'm getting to is. It depends on what your long-term goals are, right? So what are your long-term goals? Like, if you are, and I mean this in a very true sense, if your goal is about development, right, and you believe in the player that you've got, and you also believe in your philosophy and your ability to coach up that player, then you'll win in the long run. If you're willing to play the long game. If you're all about, I've got to win this game on Sunday. I've got to win this game on Sunday. I've got to win this championship this year. You're going to pick the biggest, fastest, strongest, most effective players week in, week out.
Yeah.
Right? And you might win that 7-a-side tournament. You might win that youth tournament. You might win that whatever. But ultimately what's going to happen is in the long run, those kids will fall by the wayside in favor of those clubs that are working on development, in favor of those coaches who are spending time cultivating, developing these kids.
Yeah.
100%. I'm a massive believer in that.
So then that leads into an interesting kind of conundrum. If you are trying to lead a youth program, let's say, all right? Let's wipe the slate blank.
Yep.
It's 2020 coming up, and we're gonna start implementing. We're gonna roll out this new youth program, right? Yeah. We still want to win. Under 14, under 16, like when you start going abroad, you want to be able to represent the country well, right? But you're also keeping an eye out at players like a Scholes, like a Chabi, who might exhibit some capabilities that are beyond his years, but right now he's physically not ready.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to have to be able to juggle that.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, right? If you were to make a blueprint of how to go about setting up, let's say, this generation's 12-year-olds, right? What would be a good age to start? Actually,
I'm going to start before that.
Even before that.
I'm going to start before that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about. You might think I'm plugging my academy, but I'll tell you a little bit about how we went about the process with the club.
Okay.
So, I came in January 2013, and we had a pre-existing team with Coach Iñaki and Rafi Herrera. So they had a group of kids that had come through with them just pretty much as a block age group. So that group would have been Marco Casumbre, Troy Limbo, Rocky Plaza, Carlitos Matai. I don't know if you remember Carlitos. Aniga Herrera.
Yeah.
And then sort of the slightly older group is Shandon Vergara.
Really?
Yeah, all that groups. Even Harvey with the B team to an extent. Yeah. He came in later on.
They were all playing for Kaya.
They're all playing for Kaya. So basically, that group came through together, and then they were like U15, then U17, then into Rafi's B team. So that was the first group that we dealt with. But actually, that wasn't really our academy. That was more a offshoot of Rafi's group that he'd kept together for a long time. But they were together under Coach Iñaki, and they went through the system together. But that really wasn't under my jurisdiction so much. It was more under the umbrella of the club, and we assigned coaches and helped them out a little bit. But really, that was their own program. And obviously, domestically, they did pretty well.
Yeah, impressive group of talent.
They did really well. So a bunch of the kids went to US. A bunch of the kids are playing here. Some of the kids studied abroad. Some are obviously in the pro game now. Some of them with the under 22s. Some are still playing college here. But that really wasn't my remit. So my first group really that I would consider guys who came under my influence as such, because that group was already good. Like I'm the last person to take credit for it. Like that was nothing to do with me really.
Yeah,
they were phenomenal, right? And we helped in ways in which we could. But that really wasn't my influence. So when I first came in, it would have been the likes of, so the 2005, 2006 group was really my first group of kids that I could, a little bit 04 actually. So that was my first group of influence. So that would have been kids like Mikhail and Matteo Seldran.
Okay.
Right. So obviously the twins of boot camp fame, Juan Camahort, Enzo Corbet. Who else would have been in that group? So many names. I don't want to miss anyone out, but I'm going to miss loads out. Gael Guerrero, right? So that group came in and they were sort of 6, 7, something like that. And I remember playing in the underage tournaments. And we did okay. We were pretty good. The best team in that age group was Xavier. Xavier School. Absolute monsters. They were monsters. So they had a boy called Lawrence Tortona, Britt Coe. They had 2 or 3 other kids. I think Nathan Batter was in that group also. And absolutely phenomenal players. Phenomenal players. I remember we played I think it was either U7 or U9, UFL youth semi-final. I think we got beat 7-0.
Wow.
And honest to God, it could have been 20-0. They just mullered us. And I remember thinking, my gosh, these kids are just on a different level to our kids, and our kids were just physically scared. They just couldn't handle the tempo in which they played at. They played at a super high, aggressive nature football. But technically proficient. They were technically pretty good, very skillful, and they were just impossible to deal with. Couldn't, and they won it at a canter.
Okay.
So anyway, they sort of went off the radar for a couple of years. Didn't really see much of them. They were off doing their own thing, and we just kept plugging away with this group. So, like I said, some of the kids that I mentioned earlier. So we just kept plugging away, kept working, putting some really good coaches working with them, and then they resurfaced a couple of years later, and we think we played them at U11. I think it was still UFL. I think it's still UFL youth. It maybe the first year of YFL, and they had converged on another club, and but pretty much the same set of players.
Right.
We won 7-0.
Wow.
We won 7-0.
A complete turnaround.
And I remember saying to some of the coaches, I was like, "Listen, I don't want to get too carried away with what we're doing, because I don't see that as a comparison and be like, they might have had a goalkeeper missing on that day or that whatever. So I don't want to use that too much as a like for like, apples to apples comparison. But it just showed us that I felt as though we were on the right track with what we were doing. We were very technical and tactical centric. So it was all about developing players who had essentially used the game to teach them. So understanding the nuances of the game, and then really focusing on develop them from a technical and tactical standpoint. So what that means is we would spend a lot of time when you coach football. A lot of times you teach a technique in isolation. So you teach the passing. So you teach it. Okay, this is how you pass the ball. You're standing foot next to the ball, open up your foot, pass it here, and it's all done usually unopposed. And then it's just you pass to me, I pass to you. You pass to me, I pass to you.
Yep.
Right. So you see, that's typically how you do it, and it's across a lot of sports. I see it a lot in a lot of sports. Basketball's the same, but really, the game is live. Right. The game always needs context.
Yeah.
Because football is an ever-changing picture. No 2 scenarios have ever been the same ever in any game in the history of football. Right? Every picture is completely different. Every picture is completely different. So what we try to do is we basically try to front load that cognition. So we give these pictures to these kids really early on. So everything is that we do is game related. So you can teach, so let's say you want to teach passing, right? If I want to teach passing, I might do a game where it's 2 versus 1.
Okay.
So the ability for me to pass the ball to you is easier, but you still have the context of a live opponent.
Trying to close you down.
So what that then, the player on the ball then has to decide, right, okay, so the defender's over there. He can receive the ball there. Mm-hmm. If I pass it with this weight of pass, it's going to get to him before he or she can intercept the ball.
Right.
But there's context, because if I just pass back and forth to you,
yes.
there is no context.
Right.
The cone never moves.
Right.
The cone never. Listen, I've got some defenders who are cones, to be honest with you, but generally speaking, most of them move. Right.
Right.
So it's all about applying the context. So what we try to do that, and what it enables, in my opinion, again, this is just a theory, this is just a philosophy. And it's a general movement a lot within the coaching community. You see a lot of this this come into fruition now, is in applying that context, you front load that condition, and you give these kids these pictures that they're able to see from a much younger age. So even as long as 3, 4, these kids are already playing. And what it also does is the decision is then placed solely on the player, right? So it's not a coach guide telling you how to do it, or explicitly telling you this is how you need to do it, because I see a lot of that. Sure. I see a lot of joystick coaches, right, telling you this is how you should do it. This is what you need to do. So another example that I'll give you is the ball is in your penalty box. Go to any U7 game, right? The ball is in the penalty box.
Right.
What's the coach telling the defender to do?
Defender, clear it.
Clear it. Get it out. Get it out. Get it out.
Away.
Boot it.
Yeah.
Parents are screaming it, right? Now, if I'm a really good defender, I might dribble out.
Yeah.
I might dribble out. I might see an actual pass that I can play out of this scenario.
Yeah.
Right. But because I'm being told this by all of the parents, by all of these coaches, I'm just going to do it. Right? Because after I boot the ball out,
everybody cheers.
Well done, Johnny. Fantastic. And then that reinforces him or her, if the girl's named Johnny. Oh, that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. I'm going to do that again next time I get the ball.
Sure.
Because I want to elicit that kind of response, rather than, okay, actually, if I clear it, maybe that wasn't the best option. Maybe next time I should try and pass out, or maybe next time I should try and boot it out. Or if that person then gets tackled trying to dribble out and they score, that kid knows they made a mistake.
Sure.
That kid knows they made a mistake. Yeah. And you're depriving that kid of that learning opportunity. Right? Because what happens is then you get parents and coaches on the sideline going, "Oh, Johnny, don't dribble out there. Don't dribble out there. Boot it out next time." Then what happens? Johnny feels like a dick because he's like, "Oh, God, I feel bad. I've let the team down." No, you haven't. You just learned what you shouldn't do.
Sure.
And you're probably going to rectify it next time. Right? You're probably going to learn. Right? Kids are super smart. Smarter than the adults in many ways.
Yeah.
So let the kid make the mistake. Let the kid learn. So we allow them the environment to make those mistakes, especially in training, because you've got to make those mistakes. And if you can't make it in training, you're never going to make any mistakes in games. Right? If you don't make mistakes in games at this age, you're just going to create robots where they're super safe. They're just going to do whatever the coach says. And then the worst thing is you're not going to create players who are able to think autonomously.
Sure.
Right? And I'm going to ask you this question now, because I've waffled on for ages. How many creative footballers have you seen in your time watching Philippine football?
I think it's the rarest breed that we have.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Yeah. We've got very good runners, willing runners.
Okay, good, yeah.
Aggressive players.
Yep.
But in terms of the capability to assess a situation in a tight space, pick out a nice pass, that's maybe a handful. That's a handful of players who are capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very few, I would say.
So there we go. So if we're not producing that type of player, you've got to look at why.
Yeah.
And for me, that is the main reason why. That is the main reason why. So going back to my story about these kids from the Xavier School, those kids ended up with us. So they're now in the program.
Okay.
With us. Under the tutelage of Coach Thomas.
All right.
I don't like to use sort of trophies or whatever as a litmus test or a barometer as how well you're doing. But won our YFL season 1, lost in the final season 2 to a very, very good JPV team. Malaya.
Okay.
Malaya team, very good. They're also a team that seemingly they have a very different model to us. Tend to recruit from certain communities, Malaya, but they have got some really, really talented players in their system. Very, very good. Then if you look across the board, so if you went and looked at all the YFL results, which again, I don't like to do. So only club, us, with teams who finished in the top 4 across all age groups. But I think Malaya this second season, we were the only team with multiple winners in the first round. Yeah. I think they had multiple winners in the second round, and they seem to be doing some good stuff.
Malaya is associated with JPV.
So it used to be JPV.
So a lot of Japanese coaching, or what?
Nope.
No.
I think that was more of a marriage of convenience before, when it had to be associated with a.
I see.
With a pro club. but they still had the colours. So that's why in my mind.
So what do you see them doing correctly, and why are they developing good players?
So what I understand, again, Tita Patina, who does the program, they seemingly spend a lot of so they're more, I don't want to say recruit, but they go into different communities and then they're quite selective with who they pick up. So they have a batch of kids that I think that they've had from quite a young age, build them up, and then they supplement them with other kids from other communities. If I'm wrong, then I apologise, but that's seemingly how a lot of the players are acquired. And then from that, they do spend a lot of time. They'll bring their kids abroad. They'll bring their kids to they do a lot of that stuff. But I guess they have a very active scouting network. That's really, really how they do it. So I would say we're probably we'll keep most of our kids in house. We don't recruit. We don't really recruit at all. Contrary to popular opinion, who think we're pirates, but we don't. Anyone who comes to us. Don't recruit. And just have confidence in our own ability to develop players. That's simply it. They do have a different model, and they've been successful with it. So I've got no issues. Everyone does it differently, but they produce. I would say, like, if you're going to sort of have a template for what type of player they produce, hungry, physically, very capable, skillful. They have got some very skillful players. Local players. Yeah. Local players. That's typically their type of demographic. The characteristics of their team have that composition. Yeah. Almost across the board in their teams. But they're doing some good stuff, mate. They're doing some good stuff. Isa Shime is in charge of some of their teams.
It's always nice. It always seems to be like individuals or players who had a little bit more vision. You know how they could read the game better? They seem to be able to like translate that over to children, seemingly a lot more effectively than some of those like battlers. You know what I mean? Like those battlers on the pitch who, when everything's going 100 miles per hour, they fit better.
So there's two schools of thought with that. So one is, so then they might be overly reliant on blood and thunder. Yeah. Which I think at the youth level I think that time has been and gone.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a coach who's shouting and screaming obscenities at kids, again, it goes back to my original point, which is kids will listen to you. They'll do as you say. But in the long run, you're not going to create any autonomous footballers.
Right.
I mean, what happens when the coach isn't there?
They lose their confidence a little bit.
Probably happy, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They don't. The real sign of a good coach is how they perform when they're not there. Right? Have you given them a level of autonomy that and you've coached them so well that when you're not there, they are able to perform to the highest level. Right. So one of the funny things that I liked as a debate was the Steve Kerr one, where he allowed his team to run the plays. Do you remember that one? So he let his Golden State Warriors players run the play. Okay. So he called a timeout and he said, right, I can't remember who he gave the clipboard to. I think he said like Andre Iguodala here. Just
What happened?
Yeah, I mean, the play worked and they scored and whatever. But it's about giving autonomy to the players. They're the ones that have to perform, right? They're the ones. You can't dictate to them all the time. They have to come up with the solutions. Yeah. And he got a lot of flack for that because he thought that people thought, that was, taking the mick, basically.
Sure.
Yeah, he was abusing his position as being in charge of the best basketball team on the planet, arguably. I loved it. I trust my players so much that I trust them to come up with a solution to the problems themselves.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's amazing. I mean, is that not what you want? So sorry, going on to your I'm going off, not off topic, but I've rambled on. Then the next type of issue that I've got with certain coaches is the player who was a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
So one of my friends who also works in coaching, he said he works in he's a PE teacher, but he said the worst type of person you can get when you let's say if an inspector comes and speaks to a kid and he says, right, so why did you do that? Explain to me what you just did there. If he went to Wayne Rooney, right, and he performed an action, right, or he made a mistake, for example. I'll come back to the mistake. Sorry. Let's say he dribbled around 3 guys and scored, like Wayne Rooney, and then he said, right, excuse me, could you explain what you did there?
Yeah.
No, I just did it.
Yeah.
I just did it. It's just natural. It's instinctive.
Yeah.
If, let's say a kid makes a mistake who can articulate it well, right, who isn't perhaps as good of a footballer, but understands the game well. Why did you make that mistake? Well, what happened was, as I went to fake to go one way, I went to shift the ball to the opposite side, but I didn't sell the fake enough. So as I took the touch to the side, the defender read that situation and then stole the ball. Yeah. Right. So you notice this with a lot of good players. Good players see things instinctively. All those pictures have been created from a very young age, so they're able to see that picture themselves. Yeah. But they can't transmit that to the players that they're working with as a coach. You see it all the time. You see it all the time. Very seldom, like, that type of player is able to transmit what they see in their mind to deliver a session that will bring that out and then articulate that so the players can replicate that on a game day.
That's very interesting.
You see that all the time. Yeah. So you're not. I don't care when someone says, "I played at that level, or played at this level." We're talking about coaching, 2 completely different things. Yeah. I would much rather have a coach who can articulate exactly what they want from the team, and then be able to demonstrate that in the session. Yeah. And paint the picture so the players can see that themselves. Yeah. And then allow them, give them the space, give them the room where they can perform that. If you and test whether or not you've coached that effectively or not.
That's the thing, right? I mean, I feel like there's going to be a game of reputation that gets played with acquiring clients. This is I say this with quotations because that's what the kids are sometimes to these coaching academies, right? Or to these academies. It's like we're picking up more clients, and we can do that by utilizing a reputation of a well-decorated player with a high reputation in the industry. We can utilize this person to acquire more clients, but that actual person, that actual coach, might actually be a terrible coach. But because he was a great player or was a famous personality, you could utilize him as a means to hook these players in, these clients in. Right?
And listen, I've got no problem with that. If you've got a high-profile guy, right? Let's say you got a high-profile person. Kids are going to look up to them.
Sure.
Right. Let's say you got an ex-national team player, right? Kids are going to look up to them. He's been there. He's done that. He's come from my situation and has reached the pinnacle. Right. That person, that individual, he or she can impart knowledge. Right. He can maybe whisper and be a great coach in a sense of, right, what I saw you do there was you could have done this better.
Sure.
Right. When I was in this situation, I would like to do this. Can you use your body better? Can you use your arms to leverage that opponent out the way, ease them off the ball, so you can keep your body between the opponent and the ball? Yeah. Right. Just as an example. So you can do it that way. And then if you've got a really good assistant who's great at doing the team sessions, etc., let them run the session.
Then it works that way.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, because how many times? I mean, as a kid, if a professional footballer came and spoke to me, he could say the smallest thing, and I would take that on board, and I'd be like, wow, that's gold dust. Yeah. But if my regular coach who works with me every week says something, you'd be like, oh, come on, mate. You know what I mean? He's just a dad. Or whatever. But when it comes down to it, there's no reason why you can't have both and both be equally effective in their own different ways. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's exactly what you said. If it's, he's an ex-player, so whatever he says has got to be gospel. Yeah. Or he or she is putting on a piss-poor session, and you're just lapping it up because like, well, wow. He played 50 times for the national team, so what he says got to be the truth. Yeah. Right? And then it comes back to, you better be a more informed parent. Right? You got to be more informed as a player. Yeah. If you're a slightly older player and knowing, actually, this is garbage. Right? I'm being fed. But often it's too late. By the time you realize it's too late.
It's something I experience a lot as a commentator, actually. Like I sit in an anchor position, and I have to sit alongside an analyst, right? And a lot of the time, or not even a lot of the time, but sometimes it happens that you're partnered with somebody with a personality, a real reputation in the game. Yeah. But as you mentioned, because things have come so naturally to them, to assess the situation, to break it down piece by piece, it comes as a real challenge for them. You know, they can't understand what factors come into play for that opening to happen. For example, and it becomes very like evident after a few minutes, like, oh, this guy doesn't really have too much insight on how things transpire or whatever. They're just kind of feeding off their natural instinct. So I suppose you got to be able to balance those two in a particular way, particularly in an academy, and not just be fooled. Not fooled, but like I should just say you're having your image tainted or tinted by the person's reputation, right? Which I suppose for a lot of these parents, though, I mean, they're not really that informed in the game of football. They want their kids to be a part of it, but personally, they don't really have a capability to distinguish whether or not they're coaches of good stature.
So here's quality. And here's the other issue with what you said. Is, so let's say you might use a personality to lure or draw people to come in and be at your club, right? Then the other one. The other big one is what?
What do you mean?
What's the other big thing, really, that attracts people to wanting to go to a particular club?
If they're winning.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. That is it. Right? So is your team winning?
Yeah. Do you have a winning culture? And I could see the frustration for you, because that's a difficult thing, as you mentioned, right? If your only priority is getting the results, then the development of specific players is being sacrificed as a result. That's a tough one. That's got to be a tough position to be in as an academy.
It is one of the most difficult ones to explain. I think I've got a pretty good handle with the parents now, explaining that winning is the byproduct of the work that you put in on the training field. It is a byproduct of how you develop yourself off the field, training on your own, spending time on the pitch, working on yourself. That's all a byproduct.
Yeah.
Right? It's the winning is not the thing that you should be primarily focused on, right? It is literally the daily improvements that you try to make yourself as a player. That's really, you have to be process driven. You have to be process driven. And if the process is the right one, right? If you're development centric as a coach and as an academy, you're going to get results. You're going to get results. And you also need to be very clear with how you gauge success.
Right.
So if your gauge for success is winning trophies, that's fine. That's up to you. But I would much rather be producing players that get college scholarships.
Yeah.
That play for the youth national team, that play for the full national team, that play professionally, that get to go abroad, that get to make a career out of football, right? And even if it's not going to be at that sort of level, how about we start creating people that are lifelong football lovers, right? That's another one that's massively underrated. How about we just create people who love football for their whole life? Not when they get to like 14 and be like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I'm sick of being shouted at on the sidelines, or, you know, there's a lot of reasons why people drop out of the game.
One thing I love about here actually is so a couple of times when we'll have a session and then I'll see like 50, 60-year-old blokes roll out and play at McKinley Hill, you know, whatever it is, overage league or something. I don't know what it is. Amazing. It's brilliant. Like, because they love it.
Yeah.
No, they're not getting paid.
Yeah.
Right? No one's bollocking them. No one's shouting at them. They just want to come out and have a laugh and a joke with their friends and get a little run out because they love it.
Yeah.
Right? They're probably paying a little bit to go and play.
Exactly.
Amazing. That's what you want. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the be all and end all is not winning a U9 7-a-side tournament.
Yeah.
That's not the be all and end all. No one wants to be the best 6-year-old on the planet.
Yeah.
No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
No one gives a shit if your kid is amazing at 6 years old.
Except the parents. Because then they have something to brag about with their friends. Like, oh, champion yan. Ito, nung 6 years old, grabe yan, si ganyan. That's what they want. You know, unfortunately, that's what I hear from people in and around the industry.
Are you trying to push me into making comments about stuff?
No. So what I'm saying is what I observe. There are people who are like that, who are living through their kids in terms of the success that they get on the field. They get an opportunity to brag about it with their friends. And that
they're living vicariously for their kids.
Yes, and sometimes that leads into toxic environments for their children and for the clubs that they're involved in and some of the competitions that they participate in.
Yeah, I think I said was it the Ask Chris episode? I think I was talking about I was quite lucky growing up because my father was very, very hands off. Yeah. He understood that I was very passionate about playing football, and I had a drive and determination to want to be the best footballer I could be, and one day, aspired to be a professional footballer. And I think that's the case with a lot of kids in the UK. Everyone wants to be a footballer. I remember I was 11. I'll tell you a story. I was about 11 years old when I signed for my first professional club. So I signed for Brighton when I was 11 years old. And there was a player in the academy who was just, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Lights out. Smaller than me, but technically very gifted. He had guile. He was very cute on the ball. He just seemed mature beyond his age in terms of what he could do on the pitch, how he saw the game. And I was like, God, he's so much better than me. So much better than me. His father was the coach.
Wow.
At the club. And I always remember when I first came, the first time I seen him, and a lot of the other parents spoke to my dad, and he was like, yeah, he's always got cones set up in his back garden. He's always having them run through certain drills, certain exercises, this and that. And part of me was like, oh, God, I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. And my dad was like, I don't think that's right, Chris. I think that's going to be too much. I think that's too much pressure.
On an 11-year-old.
On an 11-year-old. And we all wanted to be pros, right? We all wanted to be pros. This is. From a very young age, you realise that you're in a competitive environment. Brighton, just to geographically understand, there's no other pro clubs in our area, so it's a massive catchment area. So our youth programs are always super strong. Just not many other pro clubs in that area. More recently, a lot more of the London clubs will come down and they'll pillage from the clubs. You have Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea. They'll start to take from that area, but at the time, not really. Most of us were all from the area, but it was a really big catchment area.
Right.
So anyway, growing up, so we grew up together, and as sort of time wore on, he started to pick up more injuries. So he had issues with injuries. Next thing you know, he signed for Tottenham.
Okay.
He signed for Tottenham.
Big club.
So we moved on. Dad moved on. And then, never really saw him for a number of years. Anyway, he was released by Spurs, I think maybe 17 years old, and then ended up playing kind of semi-pro amateur football. Was pretty prolific at that level, but obviously never really fulfilled his potential.
All right.
Ended up going into coaching. Coached at a very prominent private school, but started mixing with the wrong crowd. He actually ended up going to prison for, I think he did 3 or 4 years. His roommate was a drug dealer.
Wow.
And he wasn't dealing drugs, he wasn't doing drugs, but merely through association. They did a raid on the house. He was there, and because he went to a very prominent school, taught at a school, he was made an example of. And he went inside. I think he ended up doing two years or something like that.
Jeez, this is a depressing story, Chris.
It's a depressing story.
Yeah.
But and I'm not saying that people who make bad decisions, it's all because of pressure that they've received. There's loads of people who make bad decisions who had great parents and had no pressure and whatever. Right?
Sure.
I've made some stupid decisions and both my parents were pretty good, right? But I can't help but think that based on the pressures that he had as a young child, being in that cauldron of just, it must have been relentless. It must have been relentless to be in that household. And invariably, if you're under microscope from such a young age, it's gonna have a negative impact at some stage in your life, and you don't know how it's going to manifest. You don't.
Yeah.
But I always remember that conversation with my dad, and that I just, it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well, and those stories are littered, especially in my area where I'm from. Like there's so many players who are like, oh, he's the next big thing. He's the next big thing.
Yeah.
And then they fall foul to drugs, to alcohol, to crime, a number of different things.
Yeah.
Because if you're under that microscope, if you're under that pressure, from such an early age, and often it's from parents who are living vicariously through their kids. Sorry to say, that is often how it is. That is a manifestation of being in that type of environment. And I'm not saying that kids are now, if they're getting pressured by their parents, they're going to end up in prison. It's not what I'm saying. It's just one example that I've had from a kid who I know from a young age was hammered daily about trying to become a professional footballer. I feel it sometimes with kids in their studies.
Sure.
Here, so I think it's not just something that's confined to football. Yeah. But I see a lot here. I see a lot of times it's parents living vicariously through their kids. Yeah. Coaches, right, trying to seek a glory day through the kids. And it's all because they think it's a reflection of themselves.
It's an ego thing.
It's an ego thing. I used the word egomaniacal the other day. It's an ego thing. And I would, on the one hand, it's nothing to do with you, and on the other hand, it's everything to do with you. Yeah. How your kid turns out. Yeah. Right? If your kid is a phenomenal football player, you haven't done the work.
Sure.
You haven't gone out and done the work on your own in the back garden. Your kid's done that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Your kid's the one who's out there performing in the games, not you. Right? Yeah. That's nothing to do with you. On the flip side, on the other hand, it is everything to do with you. Because if you've allowed your kid the opportunity to blossom, if you've allowed your kid that freedom to express themselves, if you've allowed your kid the chance to discover these things for themselves, I guarantee you they're going to end up loving the sport and doing it for themselves and doing it for the right reasons, not because mum or dad has pressured me into doing this.
That's, I have a similar story of that nature.
Go ahead. Because obviously you, for those who don't know, you're in the martial arts.
Martial
industry,
arts. Played basketball a lot growing up and a little bit of football. And a really good buddy of mine, I grew up in Indonesia. 8 years of my life I spent over there. And a really good buddy of mine actually excelled in several sports. He was the captain for track and field, for football, for basketball. I had parents that were very, very overbearing in their expectations of what he should reach. And while I would be the kind to have fun on a weekend, this is performance day. You know what I mean? Like I have to show up, I have to come out strong, and if we're losing, it's going to be unacceptable. So I kind of had an opportunity to enjoy the game, whereas it's more like it's a performance for him. It needs to be done correctly, or else I'm going to get a shellacking at home. So while he excelled at these sports and got the attention of colleges to look at him for scholarships, it never really panned out for him when he was on his own, when he left, because he wasn't enjoying the game anymore, right? So the game is not the source of what it was supposed to be, which is an outlet from everything else that you're doing. It became like a source of stress. So then I feel he ended up getting into the wrong crowds and finding other ways to escape, other means of enjoyment, which led into substances and abusing of those substances. And it has led into, a more difficult path for him in life, whereas it could have been the usage of sport as a means to alleviate the pressures and to make his life easier in that regard. But no, it was in fact the exact opposite, right? And if I see this in a lot of kids where you push them too hard, you take the passion, the love out of the game. And if it becomes about winning, it's never going to be that much fun. There's going to be too much pressure on you all the time, right? I mean, especially in martial arts, I see it a lot because not only is the ego of your parent involved, but it's your ego that's on the line all the time. It's one-on-one. And if you're pinning me and I can't do anything, I already feel like shit anyway, right? And then if I have to come home and tell me how much of a disappointment I am, these kids don't come back, right? And it's really tough for their egos to handle that. Obviously in a game of football, you can point fingers and be like, maybe if the goalkeeper wasn't so shit, then maybe we'd win, right? But you don't have that in martial arts. It's always just you and how you take it and how you get back on the horse, right? So there's a lot of character building in that regard. But I mean, having overbearing parents is definitely something that's difficult to take. And you and me, we've been involved in and around, you more than me, in youth tournaments, and having parents who are very much invested in results and very much invested in the success of their children, shouting at referees, shouting at opposition players, shouting at fellow parents who are watching the game. What is supposed to be a festival of, let's come together. Our kids are into the same passions. Maybe we can grab some food, talk about, maybe we don't have to talk about the football. Maybe we can talk about whatever. It boils down into something rather different. It becomes and transforms into something that's rather, it could be toxic at times, right? And I'm sure you've been in and around it. Yeah.
It is in general,
Which is difficult, right? How do you shake things up, something like that,
Again, I haven't found the right formula. I think people have probably realised that by now. I've tried different ways, but it's tough. I think it begins with education. So I think like Alvin said, you got to deal with your own backyard. You got to sort that out first. And listen, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
And we had an incident last year where a parent went on the field and grabbed a referee.
Really?
But instead of sort of shaming that individual, what we did was collaborated with the league, sanctioned him, and that parent is now not allowed to be, I think it's within 50 feet of the field or something like that.
Oh wow!
Right, so he now has to watch the games from afar.
Yeah.
We obviously don't want him to stop seeing his kid play, but he obviously realised that he overstepped the mark, and the punishment has been implemented, and hopefully that will shows other parents also that we take this thing seriously.
Yeah. And
as such, and he took it, and in fairness, he took it, and I think that's the right way to go about it, because nobody's perfect. We've all done stupid things, on the pitch or on the sideline. Like, God, you watch enough of my games to know that I could be difficult with officials and that kind of thing. But I do think it's different when you're in a professional environment. I think it's different when actually there is something on the line. That is your profession. You're getting paid to perform. Right. There's money on the line. There's league championships on the line. This is your livelihood. Then you have to perform. Right. But that comes when you get to a certain stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, you need to perform today, you 6-year-old. Right? Right? Kid.
Maybe that's the reason why some of the parents are so overbearing as well. I mean, when you're talking about there's something on the line, there's, you're getting paid for this. A lot of these parents are paying a premium to get their kids into these good academies, and they're like, hey man, I want to see your kids win.
It's very true. I used to coach in New Jersey, and one of the towns that I coached in was a place called Millburn, and Millburn was notorious for having like hedge fund central, like hedge fund capital.
All right.
So all the top hedge fund managers would live in Millburn, commute in, and then come back. So these guys were winners in life, right? Millions, dealing with millions every day.
Yeah.
So when they're paying you a premium to have you coach their kids, they're expecting a return on their investment.
Exactly.
Believe me.
Yeah.
Right. But if that return on the investment is, I want to see medals, I want to see trophies, then you're looking at it from a completely wrong perspective, in my opinion. Right. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Because if that's what you really want, no problem. That's fine. All I ask is that you don't then encroach on everyone else's business. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you're on the sideline and you want your kid to win, I've got no problem with that.
Yeah.
And if you want to go about, it has to be about winning. Okay, fine. But when you're shouting abuse and shouting and screaming from the sideline, if the game's ongoing and you're saying, kick him, then I'm going to draw the line at that. Because now you're encroaching on my space, right? And influencing other kids outside of your realm, outside of your jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And that's what's prompted me into some actions recently. But I think it's a very, very difficult one, that one, mate. I think it's a really difficult balance to try to address. Like I said, I've tried it a number of different ways, but I think it all starts with education. And, you know, we've spoke to our parents about the benefits of why we do things the way we do.
Yeah.
Why no coaching during the games,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're going to be shouting stuff from the sideline, I'm going to ask you politely to sit down. If there's been a situation where a parent has been abusive, we've taken kids off.
Mm-hmm.
Go and speak to your dad or your mum. Tell them to be quiet, and then you can come back on once your dad sits down and he's relaxed.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then you can come back on. Okay, then he comes back on. There's loads of different ways. I saw someone the other day in America. They gave them lollipops.
Yeah.
They gave the parents lollipops
To keep them from talking?
just so they can just suck on it. By the games. There's loads of different ways in which you can do it, right? And I think everyone, if we're in the football community, needs to be addressing this as a real issue.
Yeah.
But the best picture, and it's done the rounds, is the one where I think Luis Suarez and Messi are at the academy game in Barcelona with their kids.
All right.
And what do you think they're doing?
Chilling.
Nothing. Sitting down, picnic chairs, sunglasses on, feet up, letting their kids play.
Yeah.
Now, can you imagine that coach? Imagine the pressure that coach would be under if Messi's going, hey, you're doing this wrong, mate.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? You crumble, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
What am I going to say? What am I going to say to him? But he's gone, no, I trust in the coach.
Yeah.
Kid's just going to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let him enjoy the game. Oh, it's Barcelona's academy. He's probably going to be half decent, right? But I just think if they can do it, right? If two of the best players on the planet can just sit back and let their kids play and have fun, why can't everybody else? Because honestly, it's so enjoyable to watch these kids play.
Mm.
I've got a kid.
Sure.
I've got a son. And don't get me wrong, I've got impulses in me when I'm watching. I'm like, oh, I should have done this.
Mm.
Oh, you should have done that. It was really difficult. Don't get me wrong, it's really difficult.
Mm.
It's really difficult to take a back seat and either let someone else give that information to your kid or let him figure it out on his own.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Sometimes I cross the line. Sometimes I'm like, what are you doing? But 99 times out of 100, I'll sit still, be quiet, and he'll figure it out for himself.
Yeah.
He'll figure it out for himself. And as long as he's having fun, as long as he's enjoying it, I'm just going to let him play. Simple as that. Just let him play, let him have fun. There's going to come a time when he's going to ask for dad's advice. There's going to be a time when he's going to want to know, Dad, should I be doing this? Can you tell me a little bit more? How can I do this? So I'll give you an example, right? He saw another kid in the academy the other day. He can shoot like a cannon.
Yeah.
Right. He came to me and said, Dad, how do you shoot like Noah? Wasn't the name of the kid?
Yeah.
He said, how do you shoot like that? I said, okay. He said, do you want me to teach you? He said, yeah, do you want me to teach you? So we went into the garden.
Yeah.
Put a goal up, and we just spent an hour just showing it, and then eventually he gets better at shooting. Okay, now all he wants to know, he just goal hangs. He's been training. He just stands like. I watched him on Sunday. Sunday. Oh my God! He just waits on the halfway line. He's there, pass, and he just waits. He just wants to score all the time.
Yeah.
But he's made those decisions himself. Like I haven't prompted him.
Sure.
When Neil was here, he wanted to be goalie. So when Neil Edridge came here, he came and visited him. He gave him some gloves. Oh my God! Every night, goalie practice. We got the mattress out, and he go, I want to. If that's what he wants to do, mate, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Let him be.
Yeah.
Let him be. Like I think people make the assumption that I'm probably the type of parent is going to be, and like what you said earlier about, let's test the theory.
Sure.
I mean, maybe a little bit, but I definitely think my theory is just backing the hell off.
Yeah.
And letting him figure things out for himself and enjoy the game.
In your experience, that has been perhaps the most effective tact, just to let them, pick it up on their own.
Again, I'm not going to come across and say, I know it all.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come across and say, I know this is the best way.
Sure, but in your experience?
In my experience, it is the best way.
Wow. And that's probably the most difficult thing to do as well, right? I mean, you want to micromanage if you can. I mean, it seems that way, that's what I see from, people who are with young children, that they want to micromanage everything. In fact, preschool for me, I hear that a lot. There's a madness going around about which preschool to bring my child, so that they can read better when they're 6 or 7, or so that they can be ahead of the game. I mean, this is what parents are getting themselves into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a difficult environment to want to be the one to be like, you know what? Actually, the less supervision that you provide them is actually beneficial to their development. But regardless, I want to ask.
I think so. Yeah, I do. That's my philosophy.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
We'll see in a few years.
And you know what? If he ends up not being a professional footballer,
yeah,
I'm not going to judge myself, and I'm certainly not going to judge my kid, and he's certainly not going to be a reflection of me. He would have made his own decisions and made his own assumptions based on his own experiences.
Right.
Right. I'll try to guide him and help him along his way
to make the environment of football as pleasing as possible.
Before you go on to your next question, the other thing I think is massively underappreciated is, why is your kid only playing football?
Right.
That's another one.
Yeah.
I don't get that at all. Play everything.
Yeah.
Play everything. If you actually, and again, Steve Kerr had a big article that got a lot of traction recently talking about basketball players
should play football first.
But actually, I listened to the podcast that he did with a guy from the Way of the Champions. Really, really good interview. And what he was saying is, he said, I think I mentioned it on another podcast. Why are there so many Europeans and South Americans in the NBA? Why? We should have everyone. America should be just all Americans.
Yeah.
When you work by the numbers, by the amount of money that's invested in the sport there. But what he was saying is, a lot of these kids will play multiple sports, so they have a different sporting IQ.
Right.
So the example he gave was Steve Nash would be brilliant underneath the basket.
Yeah.
So he said, and he learned that from ice hockey. So he said everything normally is in front of you, right? So if you're defending the net,
yeah,
everything's in front of you. But it's quite a strange concept to have someone work the back of you or behind you, like come from underneath the rim, so to speak. And he said he learnt that from ice hockey. So he said he would be quite comfortable, like going behind the defense, work right underneath the rim, and then feed things from that position, because obviously you're all facing the wrong way then.
Right.
And everyone else is facing the basket on your team.
Yeah.
That you kind of picture the scene, right? So everyone's looking at you, and everyone else is facing the basket. So as soon as you pop the ball out, they're facing the hoop. Everyone else is facing the facing in your direction, the opposite way, back to the receiver. Manu Ginobili, another one, like Tony Parker, all played other sports, right, growing up. So it gives them a better court vision. I mean, even Steve Nash, unbelievable footballer, by the way. Unbelievable footballer. Easily could have played professionally. By a number of different people have said so. And you can't tell me that football didn't help him increase his vision.
No, 100%.
I mean, court vision is unparalleled.
100%.
He's one of the best, in terms of court vision, ever to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
So what is the differentiating factor here? I'm telling you now, football and ice hockey, 100% had a lot to do with it.
Definitely get your kids involved in as many sports as possible, right?
For sure. I mean, it helps in so many different ways. Like, I'm a huge advocate for martial arts. I'm a huge advocate for swimming, cycling, all these things. One, it prevents burnout.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's an important thing. And obviously injury prevention as well. How many people do I see with getting injuries because it's overuse? Like overuse injuries. They're so common here.
Yeah.
So common. Because all you're doing is the same types of movements over and over and over again. Play different sports.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, touch wood, I was never injured.
Really?
Never injured. Did everything growing up. Played football, basketball, cricket, cycle all the time, swam. I'm unbelievable at ping pong. I'm talking like...
Come on.
I am unbelievable at ping pong.
I'm a decent player, man. We got to get a game going.
Play.
We got to get a game
Let's
going.
Let's put a net up. Let's scrap this as play. Unofficial Asgal's all-time best table tennis player.
Is that right?
Yeah. Patrick Reichelt thinks he's the best, but I am the best.
All right.
Never lost. But I just think it's massive.
Yeah.
Just play different sports. Don't let your kid burn out.
Yeah.
Let him enjoy other activities. And then what you'll find is a lot of these other skills will accentuate your footballing skills. So Phil and Gary Neville were talking about they played cricket to a really good level. So Phil Neville apparently was supposed to be his age group the best cricketer in England.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah. Amazing. And what he was saying was he played cricket at the men's level from when he was like 11, 12 years old.
Wow.
Oh, so what he was saying was it teaches you loads of different things. One, cricket's quite a patience sport. You have to be patient to play the sport. So if you're at the crease, so you're batting, you could be batting for 3-4 hours. So it teaches you to be patient. You have to be concentrated all the time, because one mistake and you're out.
Okay.
Right. So it's a real, like, you have to be focused. You have to really channel your mind into the task at hand. But he said the other thing was, he said, you're around adults all the time.
Yeah.
So you're learning that from the social element, how to interact with grown-ups. Yeah. Which is a huge thing.
For sure.
Which is a huge thing moving forward. So I'm a massive advocate for that. I'm a massive advocate of kids playing multiple sports, not just, I mean, listen, if football's your primary sport, great. But if all you're doing is playing football all day, every day, somewhere along the line, there's going to be problems.
This is the end of part 1 of our conversation on youth development. If you enjoyed this conversation, definitely tune in next week to part 2. And if you enjoy the content that we provide here on Across the Line, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to rate and review, and definitely drop us some comments, some questions, and suggestions on our Facebook page, our Instagram, and on Twitter. Catch you next week on the next Football Friday.